Fat loss is frustrating because fat loss can be really, really tricky. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today is one of the most confusing aspects of fat loss, which is when you make a positive change but don't get a positive result, or you don't get any result at all. And this recently came up to me as a question posed to somebody who I'm going to be speaking with shortly. And her question was around this fact that she made this positive change that we asked her to make, and yet she is stalled, has not seen any fat loss. And I'm going to have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into her situation. But before I do that, I want to lay out, though, some of the reasons, the potential reasons why things like this happen. For example, we tell you, hey, why don't you go ahead and up your protein a little bit? Because that has a positive impact on your metabolism. And then all of a sudden you do that and you don't see any benefit from it. Maybe your weight stays the same. Maybe it even goes up a little bit. And here is what makes this so tricky is that often it's not that you have to just do this. It's that you have to do this and you have to do that. And here's what I mean. A perfect example I gave just a couple of weeks ago, or happened a couple of weeks ago that we spoke about, was one of our clients who I made the recommendation that she add more protein and that she change her feeding window. So we know that the increase in protein is a positive change, right? It's a move in the right direction because it was going to help assist her with getting her metabolic rate up a little bit, help support the training that she's doing, as well as probably help her in terms of getting past some of the cravings that she has for other foods. But in making that change, she had to also make the change in which we adjusted her feeding window. We knew that that was an important component to all of this as well. So sometimes what we do is we see the one thing that we need to do differently, and maybe it is an easy change. Maybe it is adding extra protein in. But if you do that and you don't make a necessary adjustment somewhere else, this is oftentimes why we get stuck. So another good example of this would be, say you decided, hey, I'm going to do keto. I want to give keto a try. And you decide that in doing a keto diet, obviously it's going to allow you to eat many more fats than you might be accustomed to. It may even open up the window to eat certain foods that you haven't had in a really long time because you were afraid that they are too high in fat. But a common mistake that people make is they'll go the route of trying to follow a ketogenic diet, but they don't make enough of a change in terms of their carbohydrate intake, meaning they recognize they have to keep their carbs lower, yet they still on the weekend or at different times might indulge with some refined carbohydrates, right? They might go and, have the pizza that's high in fat, but that's also high in carbohydrates. And the thing is that if you don't make that adjustment, it's not going to show up the way that you want it to show. And the challenge sometimes with nutrition, and this is why so many diets are polarizing. This is the aspect of dieting that I absolutely deplore, is that it's either this or it's that. And it's not necessarily a case of it's either this or it's that. I mean, you can do both, but you have to recognize how to balance out the scales. This is why I'm never one to demean somebody who wants to follow or feels better following a slightly higher carbohydrate diet. That's fine. But that same individual must recognize that, hey, if you're going to be a little bit higher on the carb side, that means you may have to be a little bit lower on the fat side, and vice versa. If you like going keto, right? If you like being high fat, well, that means that you have to be extra diligent about keeping your carbohydrates low. Now, where does protein fit in, right? Because protein for the longest time, and even right now, is the one macronutrient that even most experts will say you almost can't overeat it. And if you had to get extra calories from somewhere, you're probably better off getting them from protein. But the question remains, where are you not making the adjustment? So if you are upping your protein, but you're still keeping your carbohydrates and specifically refined carbohydrate intake too high, well, it's great that we're getting the extra protein to help assist our muscles from recovering, but it's not necessarily lending itself better to fat loss. because we still need to make that adjustment on the carbohydrate side. Or maybe you up your protein, but your fat is still too high. That might need to come down a little bit. So this is where things get tricky. If whenever you decide that you're going to make some type of change, you're going to make a shift, understand that there typically is an inverse relationship, meaning as one thing goes up, something else has to come down. So yes, as much as we like to talk about, hey, add in these healthy habits, we still have to look at taking some things out. I mean, we do this with exercise all the time throughout Pure Physique. You come in for the first time and we're going to encourage you to train at a higher intensity. But because you're training at a higher intensity, you know what must come down? Your volume, how much you're doing, or how frequently you're doing it. This is one of the primary reasons why when people come in and say, well, I'm so used to training, 5 days a week. Well, you might be used to training 5 days a week, but you're also used to training 5 days a week at this intensity level. We're asking you to train at that intensity level. Thus, you cannot keep up that intensity for 5 days per week. So just keep in mind that when we're making changes, when we're making positive changes, there's still going to be an inverse relationship. There is going to be some things that must be adjusted along with that positive change. Otherwise, you will not see the positive change that you're looking for manifest itself in your body or the way you feel. So just some food for thought as you move into this weekend. I hope you guys have an awesome one, and we will catch you next week.